Some say you were born with a great memory, and others say it's taught. I can take this deck of cards out and I can mix the cards. You'll go through the cards and you can recite the 52 cards.
Set up this wall. It's 52 feet long, it's 8 feet high, it looks like the Vietnam Wall. And they say me take 8 hours and write out all 7,000 words.
They did a series on TV where his memory was compared to Home Depot's computer.
They're like, this is an amazing display of memory. No. This is an amazing display of discipline.
That's crazy. You know, I mean, Ron, that's insanity when you say it to me.
I worked at memory. I had a memory tutor, and I became fluent in the language of memory.
Are corporations, are companies bringing you in because you can bring value to their executives?
I was at a meeting and I memorized a 50-digit number and I said it forwards and backwards. He said, Ron, if you teach me how to do that, I'll give you $100,000. He said, I'm gonna take this skill of remembering names and I'm gonna leverage it to make more money.
Disability is gonna help people in their careers. And you're saying anybody can learn how to do this. So, you know, we bring a lot of interesting guests, but today's a slightly different type of guest, something every entrepreneur is going to benefit from, and that is the two-time U.S. memory champion. Yes, apparently there is a contest you enter to be the memory champion. He's a two-time memory champion. And a few years ago, they did a series on TV called Stan Lee's Superheroes, where his memory was compared to Home Depot's computer, which is pretty wild. So with that being said, our guest today is Ron White. Ron, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me on.
It's good to have you here, man.
I'm excited about it. I've heard about you and known about you for a while now, and so it's an honor to finally be here.
Well, it's good to have you. The only thing is what's interesting when you were telling me about your memory is, so obviously he's very good with memories, but the only thing he has a hard time remembering is he met a girl he called Mary Jennifer, and he got a black eye from it. So if you can tell the black eye, right. But no, I know. Tell us how you got your black eye so we can get that one knocked out of the way.
Right. Well, knocked out's pretty much how it happened. I do jujitsu, and Tuesday night I had somebody at my guard, which basically means I had my legs wrapped around him. I was on my back, and I decided to sweep them. In other words, put them on their back. And in the process of doing that, he elbowed me in the face, which it worked.
He elbowed you in the face.
Yeah. It worked. I did not sweep him, but it's technically not in the rules. But he's a good friend, and it's all in fun.
How long have you been doing jiu-jitsu?
About 6 years.
6 years. Yeah. Okay, cool. So let's get right into it. I just want to get right into it. How does somebody become, because here's a few things you tell me. One, you tell me, I can take this deck of cards out and I can mix the card, shuffle it, give it to you. You'll go through the cards and you can recite the 52 cards, not looking at it, you can recite them one at a time.
Correct.
You can do that.
I can't do it as fast as I used to be able to do it, but I can do it.
That's insanity to me. and also the Afghanistan wall that's got all the names on there, 2,400 names. You can recite the 2,400 names. It may take you 3 or 4 hours, but you can do it.
That's right.
That's crazy. You know, I mean, Ron, that's insanity when you say it to me.
Right.
I mean, you remember someone's name you do business with. People are impressed to say, how do you remember my name? That was 6 months ago. 2,400 names is ridiculous.
Well, it is. The process of memory is actually very simple, though.
Tell us.
Whatever you want to remember, you got to turn it into a picture. You have to be able to see it. So when I think of the name Patrick, I think of a leprechaun, or St. Patrick's Day,
appreciate
right? It's good luck, right? You're good luck. When I meet somebody named Mike, I will think of a microphone. In other words, it's very simple. It's the process of seeing a picture instead of an abstract such as a name. Now, here's the challenging part, though. When people say, okay, Ron, I get that, but how do you remember 2,400 people who died? That's not just Mike is a microphone, Patrick is a leprechaun. That's 2,400 people. Rank, first name, last name, that's 7,000 words.
Yep.
My reply to that is when people see me set up this wall. It's 52 feet long, it's 8 feet high, it looks like the Vietnam Wall, and they say me take 8 hours and write out all 7,000 words. They're like, this is an amazing display of memory. I say, no. This is an amazing display of discipline, because to sit down and just do it is what really took the hard work. In other words, the process is simple. It's Patrick, leprechaun. Steve is a stove. Lisa is the Mona Lisa. But when compounded over 7,000, that's when it gets hard. but the process itself is still very simple.
So let me ask you, this would be a question I would ask, because a lot of times in the world of business, when somebody meets someone that's got a great memory, how do you remember? We met a year and a half ago. You were doing this much business. And I remember when you and I spoke, you were doing this. And I remember you were telling me about your daughter wasn't feeling too good. I remember people are enamored by it, right? So some say you were born with a great memory, and others say it's taught. So is memory thing something that you were born with this kind of a memory, or was it something that you learned a system by meeting somebody that helped you become as good as you are right now?
Yeah, so the biggest challenge I have, I've been doing this 28 years. I started when I was 18, so I'll let everybody do the math and figure out how old I am. But 28 years ago, I was an 18-year-old kid. I was going to the University of North Texas, kinda. I was signed up. I ended up getting kicked out. I had a 0.9 GPA.
It's impressive. Bob.
Thank you. Yeah.
On this channel, it's a very impressive YouTube.
It's pretty hard to do, 0.9. But during that time, I met a guy that teaches memory seminars. I was a telemarketer, and I was making cold calls one day. And I called this guy, and I said, hey, can we come clean your chimney? He's like, we don't want our chimney cleaned. We're trying to sell our house. Thanks for asking. And he started to hang up the phone. And as he was hanging up the phone, I said, sir, don't hang up the phone. If you're trying to sell your house, you need a clean chimney. He laughed. He said, I don't know about that, but I do need a good telemarketer. Do you want to go to work for me? I sell memory training seminars, and I'll pay you more than you're making now, which was, a pretty safe bet. Anybody could have said that, and they'd have been right.
Of course. Yeah.
But that's such a crucial part of what I do, that story, because people always assume, hey, you've held all these memory records, you went up against a Home Depot computer, you must have a natural gift. Now, I don't think I was a dumb guy, but I don't think I had any special ability either. This guy taught me a system that I learned, and I really believe anybody can improve their memory.
Pre-meeting him, this is very interesting, because this validates that, the memory, you sold memory, so you also learned the content that he was teaching to others. You internalized it yourself at the age of 18, so that probably helped you out. But prior to that, if I was in high school with you, if we were friends when we were 10 years old, 12 years old, were you a phenom? Were you somebody that people said, this guy's a proto, he's coming up, he's a brilliant guy, he's great in school? Did you have that kind of a reputation, or no?
I did well in school, in high school, clearly not in college, but
right.
I don't think there was any sign. Albert Einstein was not in my family tree. But I always say to people this: do you think that if you met somebody who was fluent in Spanish and you worked under them and they coached you to learn the Spanish language, could you learn it? Oh, of course I could learn a different language if I actually worked at it and had a tutor or whatever. So that's all I did. I worked at memory. I had a memory tutor, and I became fluent in the language of memory.
I became fluent in the language of memory.
Yeah.
That's a very good way of putting it, because you simply learned a language of how to memorize.
Correct.
And there's a language to learning how to do that.
There is. And the unique thing is not many people know this language. So when somebody speaks the language, we're looked at as a savant. But it's no different becoming fluent in Spanish or German or whatever.
So why don't we do this? Why don't we start off with something simple? Back in the days, if you remembered phone numbers, like I can still recite many different phone numbers, but people don't remember phone numbers anymore. Is there a system different of remembering phone numbers versus names for you?
Well, the concepts are the same in that whatever you want to remember, you have to turn it into a picture.
All of it, no matter what we're looking at.
Correct. You want to remember numbers. You got to have images, substitute images for numbers. For example, the number 21. Let's think of a substitute picture for it. What could that be? What do you think? 21, maybe a Las Vegas blackjack
3
game.
sevens, sure.
Yeah. So for me, I think of a blackjack table for 21. For the number 11, I think of a goalpost. On a football field, you got the uprights look like
Gotta be visual. Got it.
So every number from 1 to 1,000, I have a picture for. My picture for the number 527 is actually right behind you on that wall. Abraham Lincoln is 527 to me. Now, why? I use a technique known as the major system, and this is where, explaining this, I'm always hesitant, because as soon as I explain this, everybody's like, oh, I got it, this is good. And then I start talking about this, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is too complicated. But it's not. Every digit, 0 to 9, I have a letter assigned to. 5, I've assigned to the letter L. 2, I've assigned to the letter N. And when I say I've assigned it, it's actually well before me. It came out hundreds of years ago. 5 is the letter L.
5 is L.
5 is L.
Yep.
2 is N.
2 is N.
and 7 is the K sound. So it could be made with a C or a K.
Okay.
So if you have the number 527, you have Lincoln, right? Or I do, Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah.
So if you want to remember a number, it needs to be a picture. If you want to remember a name, it needs to be a picture. Everything you want to remember, the first step is to create a picture for it.
So Kenya, you came in here a minute ago, and Kenya asked you, she said, what's my lucky number? And you said 1015, and then I don't know what you said after that.
That's good.
Was it 1015?
Yeah.
Okay, you said 1015, and then you went through all these other numbers. How does he remember a number like that?
Right.
So was it the same formula you use as this one right now you're showing?
Yes. So when she showed me the number, 101 is toast for me. So, like toast you eat. 527, which was the next number, I already shared with you. It's Abraham Lincoln. 208, remember 2 is N. 0 is the S sound, an S, and 8 is the V sound. So for 208, I have a news vendor. So she said 101, 527, 208. I just imagined Abraham Lincoln eating toast, getting a newspaper. And then there was one more digit on the N3 that I just remembered. But remember a long number like that, which is 10 digits, probably takes a little bit of practice. I'm not going to lie to you. Nobody's going to listen to this interview right here and then tomorrow go memorize a 10-digit number.
Sure.
And here's why. Because they're not going to have pictures for 527, 101, or 208. It's going to sound like too much work. So I wouldn't recommend anybody starting there. I'd recommend them starting with more simple things and kind of building up to that. We kind of jumped right into probably the most difficult thing to memorize.
Which is numbers.
Correct.
Okay. So how about a book? I'm a business guy. I'm reading books. I got a million things on my mind. I'm like, man, I don't see value in me reading books. It's wasting 4 hours of my time, and I'm probably going to leave thinking remember 2 things about books. How do you memorize the content? Not necessarily memorize, but consume the best part of the content. Is there a method to that madness as well, or no?
Yes, there is. And so what I would say is with what we jumped to right here was with numbers, maybe the most difficult thing to grasp and understand. And so let me jump to the most easiest thing to understand with memory, and then show you how you could use that easiest thing to remember what you read. So there's a technique that goes back 2,500 years. I didn't come up with it. It's called the mind palace or the memory palace. And it is what I used when I set the record for the fastest to memorize a deck of cards. Right now, I'm memorizing a Constitution, the U.S. Constitution. I'm using...
It's craziness.
Yeah, right.
4,500 words you're saying, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So it's called the mind palace. And here's the idea to it. Everybody right now that's watching or listening to this interview, you could close your eyes and visualize your house. You could visualize, okay, I'm standing in the front door. Right over here is my refrigerator. This is my stove. This is my sink. This is, whatever. Go all the way around your house. We all already have our homes memorized. So let's use that to our benefit. Let's pretend right now, you're standing in the doorway to your house and the doorway opens. What would be immediately to your left?
My office.
Your office. So let's go into the office. Now we're standing at the doorway to the office. What's immediately to your left?
The table made out of ceramic that my dad made with PHP's logo on, and when it got started with a chest on top of it, and a painting of Lincoln to the left.
Wow, so that's visual. Yeah. Now you love Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln.
Oh, no doubt, yes.
Wow, I want to hear that story sometime. So on that table, I want you to imagine a washing machine, okay? So imagine the washing machine's going around, soap's flying out.
Yep.
So you got it?
Yep.
So you just told me that there's a table there, and then next to it's the picture of Lincoln. On the picture of Lincoln, I want you to imagine there's a dam, and Abraham Lincoln pictures holding back water behind that dam, and maybe the dam breaks.
Okay.
Let's do 5 in this room. So that's 1, 2. What's the next piece of furniture over?
If I'm going left, then what's to the right?
Well, let's keep going around the room clockwise.
So let's go around them clockwise. So if I went left, I just told you what's on the left side, Lincoln painting and ceramic table. There's a washing machine on top of it with the painting holding the dam. If you keep going around, there's boxes sitting there with my Sonos mic that I haven't installed yet from the old house because I moved into this new house. That's in that corner.
So it's boxes?
Multiple, 12 boxes.
Okay. On those boxes, let's have a chef over there. And the chef is cooking your favorite meal. What would your favorite meal?
Sushi.
Sushi, cooking sushi or whatever. Look at those boxes and taste the sushi.
Okay.
So now we've got a washing machine, we've got a dam, and we've got a chef.
Okay.
Let's go. We're going to do two more. One more over. What's the next piece of furniture?
It's going to be my leather chair that I have right behind my desk.
Okay. On that leather chair, imagine you're sick, you're throwing up, you're just terribly sick. You sit down in that chair and you take your medicine. You're taking NyQuil, you're taking Tylenol. Medicine's all over the chair. So what's in the chair?
It's me. I'm taking medicine. It's NyQuil all over the chair.
Very good.
Okay.
One more, last one in that room. What's the furniture?
The furniture is a old classic presidential type of a desk that's sitting there. I don't know how to describe it, but it's a presidential desk.
Awesome. Yeah. So on that desk, I want you to imagine there's a guy in a rowboat, and he's rowing a boat, and he's just rowing a boat down
across
that
the
desk.
table. Okay.
Across. You got that?
Yep.
Going back through the room now, what were the five? Can you remember the five pictures? Let's start at the table.
What's on top of it is a dishwasher.
Correct.
Lincoln is holding back a dam.
Right.
On top of the microphones is my chef making sushi for me. On the leather chair, I have a NyQuil all over the place because I spilled it all over the place. And there's a guy on top of the table rowing a boat.
Booyah. That's it. All right. Perfect. So what I just did is I took the first five presidents of the United States, turned their last names into a picture. So on the first one, we got a washing machine for Washington. On the next one, we got a dam for Adams, a dam Adams. On the next one, we got a chef for Jefferson, old Thomas Jefferson, right? Jefferson. The next one, medicine for Madison. And the next one, Monroe for Monroe. So I've literally taught 6-year-old kids to memorize the presidents of the United States this way. And they'll memorize the presidents in like 60 minutes. And they're 7, 8 years old.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. It's called the Mind Palace. And I wish I could say I'm a genius. I came up with it.
Yeah.
But you just see how easy it is. Now, if all you have to do to memorize all the presidents is just continue walking through your house.
Let me ask you, who's doing this to teach business owners about this ability? Like, is anybody doing that to teach? Is there like a course for this? Is there can you do a weekend course and go teach them on how to get your memory to be better?
That's what I do.
And you do that on a what? You do that on a 1-hour speaking gig, or you do that as a 3-day conference?
Both. You know, I'd say 70% of my speeches are 1-hour keynotes at conferences, but we also do extended events.
Yeah, there's more to that. I mean, that can get really deep there with the memory part. Very, very interesting. Very interesting. Okay, so if you wanna lead me, because you said math, the numbers will be the toughest part. What you just taught me, which is the dam for Adams, the chef, the washing machine for Washington, the chef for Jefferson, the medicine for Madison, and the row for Monroe. Okay, so those five. I remember to myself right now with the presidents, right?
Right.
Okay, so we're going with that. And by the way, you know what's so crazy in the Army? In Navy, you were in the Navy, obviously. Thank you for your service. But in the Army, when you were remembering generals, and I was sitting with General McChrystal, he's a 4-star general.
Wow.
And we were interviewing him. I said, "You're a 4-star general." I said, "You know how I learn my generals?" He says, "What?" I said, "Be my little general." He says, "What do you mean?" I says, "B is brigadier general. That's
Right.
1 star. My is a major general, 2-star. Little is lieutenant general. It's a 3-star. And be my little general is a 4-star. He says, "I'd never heard that before." I said, "My sergeant taught me that when I was coming back in AIT, because you have to take the test to remember, what all the ranks mean, how do you process in your brain." This is very interesting when you're teaching a method you're talking about. Okay, so going back to it. So you said the most simplest one is the one you just shared. What's the next one?
Well, everything actually kind of builds on this memory palace. So now there's just different ways that we can use it. Let's say we want to use it to remember what you read, which is what you had asked. So let's say you got a book. I don't recommend people memorize as they read. I recommend they have a highlighter or a pen or a notepad over here, and as they read, they highlight or underline the key points.
Which is what most people do.
Correct.
Okay.
And then when they get to the end of the chapter or the end of the book, now you got all this stuff underlined or highlighted. Yeah. Just go through it, turn each one of those things into pictures, and imagine them around your mind palace or your memory palace. I would say almost everything I memorize, I use this method, the mind palace or the memory palace method, which is visualizing stuff around a room. So I guess the next step after the next step would be is to build your mind palace. So the way I would do it, or the way I did do it, and the way I would recommend anybody do it, is stand in the doorway of every room in your house, like we did, and number 5 pieces of furniture going clockwise around the room. Do that in room number 1, room number 2, room number 3, room number 4. Do at least 5 rooms and get yourself 20 pieces of furniture numbered in your house so you can say them forwards and backwards. Then the next step is take whatever it is you want to learn to remember or memorize. And next time you want to remember it, I'm in a meeting with you and you say, hey, Ron, don't forget to call Brian. So immediately I see a telephone. Brian is a brain for me, and I'm putting that on the number 1 location. So it can be, and I hate to dumb it down and say use this to remember your things to do list, because I think it can be such more beneficial information. But that's one example right there. Names and faces is something people ask me about a lot.
How do you do names and faces?
In this process, it sounds simple, but it works. I just spoke at a meeting yesterday, and there was probably 150 people in the audience. And as they walked in, I stood at the door and I shook 150 people's hands. And then when I got up on stage, I said, everybody stand up. 150 people stood up.
Come on.
No. They put their hands over their name tags, and they're like, there is no way.
Come on.
Yeah, I'm serious.
You named all the 150.
I got 149. There was this one guy named Joe, and I could not think of his name, but I got 149 out of 150. But the process itself is actually pretty simple. And this is what I do. For example, you meet me right now, black eyes probably is what's going to stand out. But hopefully, and I'm hoping, it's going to be gone in a week, So you need to look at my face and pick out something that you think's going to be there in a week or 2 weeks. Maybe the beard, maybe the high hairline right here, whatever. You pick out something unique on the face. And then you take their name. For example, Patrick. It's leprechaun for me, right? So I actually visualize a leprechaun running across your eyebrows right there, running back and forth, maybe eating Lucky Charms or whatever. Don't hit me or anything, all right? It's not an insulting picture, okay? But that's how I do it. So when I was at that conference yesterday, this lady walks in. She's got really pretty eyes. I say, hi, my name's Ron. She says her name is Lisa. Instantly, I'm painting the Mona Lisa in her eyes. I go to the next guy. This guy, he had huge ears. And he said, my name is Steve. Instantly, I'm cooking his ears in a stove. So then there was a guy named Mark. He had a really dark beard. So I imagine I was coloring in his beard with a marker. So now I get in front of the audience. I say, everybody stand up. I'm not actually trying to remember their names. I'm just trying to remember what stood out on their face. Oh, it was her eyebrows. It was his beard. It was his ears. And then I remember the picture, and then I remember the name.
Now, does it have to be in order or no? Not at all.
Not for that. It doesn't have to be in order.
Really? So yours is not like in order of letters, like to have a musical sound of way of memorizing it. It's the visual for you.
Visual, yes.
Okay.
There's been scientific studies on this. They had college studies where they took a group of college students and they put them in an auditorium and they gave a list of 100 words. And they said them verbally, spaced out by 5 seconds. Then they tested their recall. And then they took a second group of students and they gave them 100 words, but it was 100 words with images. Instead of saying the word house, they had a picture of a house in a PowerPoint presentation. Then they tested them. The recall on what they saw versus the group that just heard the words was 7-8-fold. I mean, it was a dramatic difference. We remember what we see.
Let me ask you, how valuable of a skill set is this? How valuable is this? I mean, I think about it in the business world, it's extremely valuable. But how valuable is this? I mean, because you're in the world, so when you're selling this, who's buying it from you? Who are the people that are coming to your conferences? Who are the people that are coming to your 3 days? Or who's inviting you to come and speak? I imagine one part of it is entertainment aspect of it, but forget about the entertainment aspect of it. Are corporations, are companies bringing you in because you can bring value to their executives?
It is, yes. And sometimes I do get pinholed as the entertainment or the comedy because people are laughing when you just repeated 150 names and you just saw. They're like laughing because they don't know how to react to it. But I tell them this is so much more than comedy. This is valuable education. Think about it. Let's say that you sell real estate, or you sell automobiles, or you sell insurance, or you sell anything, and you meet somebody today, a prospect, and in 6 weeks you're at the Dallas Cowboy game or the Texas Rangers game or some other sports team, Starbucks, and you see that person, and you're able to say, Patrick, How are you doing, man? Hey, it's so good to see you. You know, I haven't seen you in 3 weeks, and you're able to ask them about their families by name. It's powerful. So building relationships. You and I talked earlier, and you brought this up. You brought up Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. In that book, he said everybody's favorite subject is themselves, and the sweetest sound of their ear is the sound of their own name.
That's right.
There is a guy here in Dallas. I was at a meeting, and I memorized a 50-digit number, and I said it forwards and backwards. I did it for his group there. He had hired me. And he said, Ron, if you teach me how to do that, I'll give you $100,000. And I thought, well, he's got to be joking because he's paid me to be here and he's not giving me $100,000. So I laughed it off and I went on. At the end of my speech, a guy at the back of the room says, Ron, I could say that 50-digit number now. Well, the guy who had hired me turned to that guy who's named Jerry. He said, Jerry, if you say the 50-digit number, I'll give you the $100,000. And I'm like, what? I just said it, you know? And so Jerry says the 50-digit number. He wrote him a check for $100,000. He takes the check over to him. 3 days later, Jerry emails me, Ron, I cashed the check. The money's in my bank. I have $100,000. I owe you dinner. I'm like, you don't owe me dinner. You owe me a car. But
Is this guy's initials AB?
They are not. They are not.
Are you sure about that?
Yes, he's got an office off here off of 635 and the tollway. His name is on the side of that building. But
because this guy's name I'm saying, his name is on a lot of buildings.
Is it?
Yeah, it's a local Dallas guy as well. But anyways, go again. So he pays $100,000 to this guy.
He pays $100,000.
Does the guy end up buying you a car or no? He just got you a lunch or dinner.
I skipped that guy. I went after the guy that wrote the check.
Okay.
Because my wheels started turning. This guy's got 900 employees. And I emailed him and I said, sir, you know what? He's given me permission to use his name. Matter of fact, he's told me it's okay to use his name. I'm going to say his name. His name's Brent Ryan. He owns a company called Ryan.
Okay.
And I said, Mr. Ryan, you have 900 employees. Why don't I teach you how to memorize those employees' names? And I quoted him a fee, and that part I'll keep quiet. I quoted him a fee that was less than $100,000, but it was still had some zeros in there. And I went to his office. He wrote me that check, and he said, Ron, a lot of people think this is a lot of money to give to a guy who's just going to teach me how to remember names. He said, but it's not just remembering names. He said, the reason I got a company that's making so much money and I can write a $100,000 check on a bet is because I know how to leverage skills. He said, I'm going to take this skill of remembering names and I'm going to leverage it to make more money. So I guess that's kind of a long story to answer your question of the value of remembering names. This guy who's making so much money.
It's worth well more than $100,000 to learn this ability.
Yeah, and so he used it to memorize the names of his employees.
What other industries have showed interest like this gentleman did, Ryan, to learn like what else have you learned? Who else has approached you?
You know, it's a lot of entrepreneurs. It's a lot of salespeople that they really seem to grasp onto it a lot because I think the interpersonal skills of remembering names is really going to impact the pocketbook. But it's not just that. It's people who have to stand up in front of groups and give presentations. Because when you can stand up in front of a group and give a presentation and not have to read your PowerPoint or not have to read your notes, instantly you become a more dynamic speaker. You become a more charismatic speaker. You become a speaker that appears more knowledgeable of your subject matter. So people who have to give speeches, any person who's taken any type of exams or test for their certifications or whatever, they are taking this course so they can take those exams without stress. So it's just a wide range of people.
Any weird ones? Any weird ones that let me give you an idea what I mean by this. Okay. So I had Richard Turner. I don't know if you know who Richard Turner is. Richard Turner is the #1 card magician in the world. Okay, that's what he likes to call it. Card mechanic in the world. He doesn't like the word magic. He likes mechanic. He's the #1 card mechanic in the world. And he was on Penn and Teller, and he's doing his old trick on these guys, okay? By the time he's done, what they don't realize is he's blind.
Oh.
He can't see.
Wow.
He's 100% blind.
Wow.
He cannot see nothing, right? So he came down, and he and I sat down. He was at the same place here. and he was a guest. And I said, what's the weirdest person that approached you with disability? Because disability can attract good people and bad people. He says, yeah, the mob contacted me.
Wow.
And I said, what did the mob say? He said, the mob was interested in my ability to go due to counting cards, playing cards at certain casinos and winning. And he says, I had to turn it down because, once you do it one time, they could. Was there any weird people that have ever approached you with disability? You got a smile on your face. So some tells me.
I don't know if there's weird people. Unique
background. I mean, unique stories.
Unique. I in 2009, I set the record for the fastest to memorize a deck of cards in the United States. Then I was in New York, and the next day, David Blaine's assistant called me and said, "Hey, David, just heard about you setting the record. Can I give him your cell phone number?" I said, you can give me my social security number. I want to be David Blaine. And I went down to his office the next day, and I taught him the system to memorize a deck of cards. That was fun. I've done a couple radio shows. These guys are, the entertainment shock value, where they have had a bunch of ladies line up that were wearing maybe less than nothing, and I had to memorize all their measurements. That was
by pure guess or by actually measuring them?
They said them. No, I didn't measure them. But those were two interesting things. I don't know if anything odder than that, but those are the two that jumped out in my head.
That's pretty cool. I mean, those are pretty cool things to be able to do. So listen, how about we do the deck of cards? Is that okay with you?
Yes.
All right, let's do the deck of cards and see if we can do anything here with it. So is there anything you want to tell us before I do this? Paul, if you want to get this so we can show exactly what the deck looks before I shuffle it. So I don't think this deck has a joker in it. Okay, let me check this here real quick. I don't see a joker, so it's 52 cards we're looking at here. Yep.
Yeah, and the only things I would tell you is that this stunt takes a lot of preparation and practice, and I haven't practiced it in years. So
So if you do it, it's that much more impressive if you do it. And if you don't do it, no pressure. Obviously, it's just going to be a couple million people watching. I don't want you to get too nervous about this.
I'll get it.
It's just.
Go ahead.
Okay, so here we go, okay? I'm gonna mix it one more time, and then what do? You want me to hand it over to you, and then you look at it, and then as you're going through it, I'm gonna show it to the audience here. Does that work?
Yeah, I'll need to hold it to go through it.
Okay, go for it.
And this could take 3 minutes.
It's totally fine. Okay. We can do a time lapse here, so you do your thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll see. And now, when you do the recall, we'll do it from this side.
Okay.
This side.
All right. Okay.
So the first card, I believe, was the 8 of spades, then the 5 of hearts, 2 of hearts, king of hearts, 10 of hearts, ace of clubs, queen of spades, 4 of hearts, 8 of hearts, 3 of spades, queen of diamonds, queen of hearts, 9 of spades, 6 of hearts, 10 of spades, 7 of spades, 5 of clubs, 3 of hearts, 8 of diamonds, 7 of hearts, jack of clubs, 9 of diamonds, 2 of clubs, 9 of clubs, and then 9 of hearts, 4 of spades, ace of spades, and then 6 of spades, 10 of clubs, 5 of diamonds, 6 of clubs, 4 of diamonds, 7 of clubs, 2 of diamonds, 2 of spades, king of spades, 8 of clubs, 4 of clubs, 7 of diamonds, 6 of diamonds, king of clubs, jack of hearts, and then 5 of spades, jack of diamonds. Oh my gosh, it can't be 5 of spades again. That would be impossible, and that's what I want to say. Let's push that card to the side, and we'll see if I can come back to it. 10, so the next card is 10 of diamonds, queen of clubs, 3 of diamonds. and then ace of diamonds, king of diamonds, and ace of hearts, and then the next one would be jack of spades. So everything correct with the exception of one
Everything is
skip.
100% correct. You got one left.
Okay, so if would you give me will you give me 1 second here to
Sure.
run
Yeah,
through my
yeah.
brain?
Sure. Do your thing.
Okay. Oh, it's a 3 clubs.
Are you freaking kidding me?
Okay.
So what were you processing right now? Where were you at?
Yeah. So I used the Mind Palace, the technique that I talked to you about. And for every card, I have a picture for it. My picture for the 3 of clubs is a bathroom stall. Okay? That's what it is.
Why? Why a bathroom stall?
Well, okay, this is the absolute worst card as an example. So,
Am I kind of getting an idea where this is going?
well, this is actually the worst card, but I'll go ahead and tell you, and then you can decide if you want to keep it in your YouTube.
Sure.
For every card I've assigned a celebrity to. Okay, so not all of them are celebrities. The Queen of Hearts is my mom, right? So, but some of them, most of them, are celebrities. I told you before that every number has a sound to me. So 3 is the sound M, and that card is the 3. So the last name needs to start with M. For the clubs, I all had them start with G or J sound. So when I'm going through this, I'm like, GM. What's a famous person with the name GM?
George Michael.
Yes. And so George Michael, and where he got arrested in a bathroom. Okay.
That's literally how you did it.
Yes, that's my image for the 3 clubs. That's the worst example that we have. But I'm not necessarily a huge George Michael fan, but his initials happen to correspond, and it's the first famous person you thought of. It's the first famous person I thought of with those initials.
Interesting.
So I had George Michael on this desk in my house, which is, one of my pieces of furniture, and I just, for whatever reason, the image wasn't super solid, but I got it. Yeah, I just had to think about it.
Unbelievable how that's done. And you're saying anybody can learn how to do this?
Anybody who will take the time. Anybody who will take the time and number 20, 30, 40, 50 pieces of furniture in their house. Anybody who will take the time. And here's what you need to do. For the next 3-4 weeks, tell yourself, every time I meet a person, I'm going to turn their name into a picture. Just make that commitment to yourself. You meet somebody named Steve. Oh, what could that be? How about stove? You meet a Lisa. What could that be? The Mona Lisa. Just make your commitment to yourself that you're going to do it for 3 or 4 weeks. At the end of that 3 or 4 weeks, you'll have turned 100 names into a picture, and then just use those pictures for names. So it's going to take time, but anybody can do it.
Can I ask you some names to see where you go with that?
Sure.
Mario.
Super Mario Brothers.
Video game?
Yeah.
Okay, Joe.
A Sloppy Joe hamburger.
Jennifer.
Jennifer, I use a Chen with fur. Chen fur.
Okay, interesting. Ian.
Ian, I use a baseball player, Ian Kinsler, and that's terrible. I recommend you don't use people for people, but that one's so unique I do.
Okay, Mike.
Microphone.
Microphone, okay. Paul.
A basketball.
Kai.
A kite.
A kite. Yeah. Kenya.
Kenya, I think of the country of Africa.
You would think straight, you would go to the country.
I do.
Kenya.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think of, I'll think of rhinoceroses or elephants, whatever I think is on a safari there.
Matt.
A doormat.
Rodolfo.
I would use Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
You would go to Rodolfo?
Yeah. Now, with this one, you got to remember that it's Rudolfo and not Rudolph, but that's close enough.
Got it.
Yeah.
Someone's going to say you are close enough to it.
Yeah.
That is so amazing to me, how you doing this. And so let me ask you, the average time for somebody to learn this Mind Palace, how long is that going to take?
I think everybody that's watching or listening to this interview could, in 20 minutes, number 20 or 30 pieces of furniture in the house. Because here's the deal. You already have your house memorized. You just don't have it numbered. And I recommend you do it 5 pieces of furniture at a time. And the reason for that is it just becomes easier to count. In other words, if you memorize the President's United States and you got 6 in one room, 4 in one room, and 9 in another room, and then I say, what's number 12? You figure it out, but it's going to take a minute. But if you got 5 in this room, 5 in this room, 5 in this room, and I say, who's 15? Boom.
Boom, easy at the end of room number 3.
So for organizing, that's the best way to do it.
So what if you live in a small little, place? It's not even 1 bedroom. It's a loft. How do you remember? How do you do that?
I think you're spying on me because I live in a 1-bedroom condo in
Do you
Fort Worth.
really?
Okay, and my current project is I'm memorizing the United States Constitution. So it is roughly 4,500 words, right? How in the world do I memorize the Constitution when I'm living in a 1-bedroom condo? This is what I did. I numbered all the places in my condo, but then it's downtown Fort Worth. So then I go around downtown Fort Worth and I start numbering locations all over downtown Fort Worth. I've actually brought a visual aid with me here. I'll show you.
Sure, yeah.
So this is Fort Worth.
Okay.
Here's a gas station that I'm real familiar with. There is the gas pump. There's the front door. This is a law office over there. Here's Joe T. Garcia's, which is a famous restaurant. I walked around the restaurant. I took pictures all in the restaurant. In other words, I built a mind palace all over Fort Worth, in restaurants, down streets, inside restaurants and bars and hotels. Here's Billy Bob's coming up right here. That's not Billy Bob's. There's Billy Bob's. So I took 500 photographs. And then I put them in a PowerPoint. So now I got this PowerPoint that's 500 locations mind palace. And then underneath it, you will see is the Constitution. This line of the Constitution goes here. This line of the Constitution goes here. This line of the Constitution goes here. And I just have to look at this and create some image that's going to be a brain trigger and attach this image to this. I'll kind of go a little bit into the weeds here on this. You will notice on this one, there's a lot of yellow on here. In the Constitution, the words shall be repeat over and over, but also the words may be repeat over and over. I'm like, how do I know if it shall be or may be? I have coded for myself yellow for shall be, and maybe, I don't know if I can find another one, is blue. So you'll see some pictures with blue. But
Shall be yellow again. Is there more shall be there because it's yellow, or why do you have yellow
this is
here?
Shall be. This is shall be. But
Got it.
So to answer your question, how do you build a mind palace with if you live in a small place? Use the town you live in. Use your favorite restaurant, your favorite bar, your favorite locations, the baseball stadium.
If I'm sitting with a high-end client that I got to close and I'm selling, I'm a business person. If I'm sitting with a partner that I really want to do business with, I want them to invest into me, I have a lot of data and research I've done on them.
Correct.
Is that concept of doing the research on them similar to what you're saying right now? So you would take a folder, you would take 40 different facts about them, create a visualization on each one. If you don't have a more than a 1-bedroom place you're living in, go to this place and take those pictures and create them. And then you will know as you're speaking to them that you dropped this, you dropped that, you dropped this. Person's going to say, very impressive for this guy to know the history about our company, when we got started, who the first CEO was, who the second CEO was, who our first investor was, when we sold for $320 million. The same procedure, the same process can work for that as well.
Absolutely. And to a certain extent, I did that for you. Last night I was on your YouTube channel. I was watching your videos, just to get a feel for your show, but also to get a little bit more background on you and see if there was any common friends that we could talk about. And I found one. So I did that. And as I was doing the research on you, I take that little bit of information and I put it on the first piece of furniture in my house. I take the second piece of information that I want to talk about and I put it on the second one. So absolutely, if you're doing research on a client, get that information. And then you got 10 points about this person that you want to bring up. Put them on pieces of furniture in your house. Now let's take it a step further. So you've done research. You walk in and you've got all these things you want to bring up, show them that you're interested in them and you've done research. Walk around that room in your house saying it. But now in the conversation, that client or prospect might tell you some stuff that you want to remember for your next meeting to show them that you're listening. Yep. As they say that information, in the next room in your house, put it on that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with writing it down in front of the client either. But if you don't want to do that, put it on the next piece of furniture. So he or she brings up 5, 6, 10 things. Boom, 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 boom. You get out of the meeting. You get back to your car. There's no shame in writing those 10 things down. But the mind palace held it in your brain till you got to your car.
So I can use the same furniture for the same thing, or no? I have to create a new thing for that. So meaning I can't use the Lincoln to use damn, or the table to use Washington to put a washing machine up top, I can't use that again for another piece.
You can, and that you actually just had, it's a very perceptive question that you just asked me, because I just told you use 10 pieces of furniture to remember data on this person.
Sure.
And then I told you to use a different set for what they tell you. The reason I said that is it's from the same meeting. So it's kind of the same topic. In other words, if you memorize the presidents of the United States today, use your first five.
Yeah.
Then tomorrow you do research on a prospect. You can use those same 5 pieces of furniture. You're not going to confuse it. You're not going to think, oh, this guy used to know James Monroe. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to confuse the material. But if the subject matter is so similar, it comes from the same meeting.
Don't do it.
Use different pieces of furniture.
Got it. So right now, if you did this exercise with me, that I'm remembering five presidents, I'd know the first 3. If it was you or no, I remember the first. I didn't know 4 or 5.
Yeah.
The way we just did it right now, right? How long would it take you for you to be able to do the 45 presidents with me?
We could probably run through it, and we would have to establish your house files, or we could walk around your office right here. We could do it here, and you'd probably have them in 30 minutes, 25 minutes, 20 minutes maybe.
It's probably going to stick for the rest of my life.
It would, and I'd be happy to teach them to you.
That's unbelievable. Yeah. So this is not just a method for people to learn for themselves. This is a method they can teach their kids. This is a method for teaching. This is a method for selling. This is a method for persuasion. This is a method for respect. This is a method for, I got a guy call me the other day. He is meeting with the CEO. He's meeting with the CEO. And the CEO is Saudi Arabian, the CEO of the operation that he's looking at. And he called me. He says, hey, I got a question I want to ask you. I said, what's that? You're from the Middle East. I'm meeting with somebody who is very powerful in the business world, similar like you, and I want to be able to earn his trust and earn his business. What are some things I need to be doing? And we had a 40-minute conversation together on what approaches to take and how you show respect. If they got kids, you feed their kids, you feed them, that's respect to them, because to them they look. All these things we went through. He recited it, and he went and he was able to do the business and get whatever transaction he wanted to get done with these guys. And obviously that's disclosed, but business was done with them. This is an ability that can help in many aspects of a person's life. Saying it to you, how does this apply to personal relationships? Does this help in personal relationships with your boyfriend, girlfriend, parents, kids, based on what you know as well?
Yeah, you bring up kids. One thing that I love to do is the President's of the United States exercise with kids. I was dating a girl a few years ago, and I would memorize a deck of cards in front of them. I would just sit, and I wasn't consciously doing it. I was training for a memory tournament. But I never went to these kids and said, hey, let me teach you a system that's going to help you in school. I think if I would have done that, they would have been turned off. But they saw me memorizing a deck of cards, and they just were fascinated. And this little 5-year-old girl, my girlfriend's daughter, comes up to the table, and she's got these little cards, and one says O and orange underneath it, and P and pirate or whatever. And she hands them to me. She said, memorize these. And I memorized those. And when I did, her eyes just got so big. Her little brother, or her big brother, said, I want a Nintendo player. Will you give me your Nintendo player? You're too old to have a Nintendo player. I said, man, what kind of lesson would it be to you if I just gave you a Nintendo player? It's a $200 toy. He said it'd be a lesson that people should be generous. I said, man, that's not the lesson I want to teach. He literally said it. Yeah, he's a smart kid. But I ended up making him a deal. You memorize the presidents, I'll give you the Nintendo player. He memorized the presidents in 90 minutes walking around his house. He was 10 years old.
But you taught him how to do it.
Correct. I did it. I did it with him.
Okay.
And in 90 minutes, he got it. Then his 5-year little girl, the one with the cards, she wanted to do it too. So then we did it with her, and she memorized them in an hour. Yeah. So with kids, it really helps them with their homework and that kind of stuff. I'd say with relationships, if you want to remember your anniversary, I'll say this to the guys. Guys, you want to remember your girlfriend's anniversary or birthday, or just forget it once. That is the best way to remember it, okay? You'll never forget it again. But in all seriousness, maybe that your girlfriend tells you something and it's important to her. You could remember it this way. So I think it helps in all relationships.
Yeah, this is I agree. I can only imagine that. So how much information do you have stored in your mind right now? Like, what things have you memorized? Like, some of the things you said is obviously big. Like you said, okay, Constitution, you're working on it. You're going to do it on 4th of July on Fox and Friends. The 2,300 names, Afghanistan wall, memory wall. The presidents, I'm assuming you can do that with your eyes closed to go through the 45. What else? What else of these have you memorized?
Well, for a memory tournament, I memorized the periodic table of elements, and I had to memorize the atomic mass of all of them and the boiling point and that kind of stuff. But that was kind of not really important to me, so I didn't hold on to it long term. The Afghanistan wall is important to me, so I held on to it long term. In other words, it's meaningful to me. And what do I mean by holding on to it long term? I just reviewed it.
That makes so much sense.
If something's not important to you, just don't think about it anymore. If it's important to you, you're going to need to go back and review it every couple days until it's solid.
Does it make sense to empty and release or no? Or does it just automatic, like based on what you're saying? Because to me, am I processing it as I have this much data that I can store? The more I fill it, I'm either going to lose something that's not important, or is it important to empty to be able to fit more stuff in there, newer stuff in there? How do you process that? Do you know what I'm asking?
I know exactly what you're asking. And you don't have to consciously remove the material to put new data in. Just don't think about it anymore, and it'll fade away, which is why people want memory training, because that's the problem. Information is always fading away. So just don't think about it anymore. It'll go away. But if it is something that's important to you, then you will need to review it maybe the next day, review it in a week, review it in a month. For that Afghanistan wall, when I memorized the 2,400 fallen military, I would memorize maybe 50 a day. And then the next day, before I memorize the next 50, I'd review the previous 50. So now when I have 1,700 people memorized, I'm reviewing the 1,700 before I add another 50. Some days it was just days of review.
This is so powerful what you're saying, because I ran a sales organization, and every time we taught a script, I would break down a script into 10 different parts, and we would do 1 10 times, then we would do 1 2, then we would do 1 2 3, then 1 2 3 4, then 1 2 3 5, then 1 2 3 5 6, then 1 2 3 5 6 7, and then eventually after it's done, everybody knew the script.
Yeah.
But we'd go back to that, but no one's doing it intentionally. This is just how we role played it. So this applies to teaching your sales guys. This applies to kids. This applies for yourself when you're meeting with clients. There are so many different facets to this on the Mind Palace. Is there any other things that you're thinking about that we can learn from before we finish the interview? Any other things that you have on your mind?
Well, one thing I'll touch on as far as sales guys, I used to have telemarketers that worked for me to set appointments. And this guy, I said, man, he was terrible. He was terrible.
In sales?
In sales.
Okay.
And I said, man, you as a telemarketer, I said, you sound like you're reading a script. He said, well, I am reading a script. I said, yeah, but you're not supposed to sound like you're reading a script. People are hanging up on you. So we took the 10 major things that he needs to say on the telephone, we turned them into pictures, and he put them around the room. So he went from reading the script word for word, sounding terrible, to sitting back, looking around the room and talking about what he saw on the walls. It was the exact same script, but he had it memorized, and he sounded so natural. It sounded like a conversation. Made a big difference. As far as memory overall goes, though, I think names and faces is the biggest key, or for a lot of people, especially in business. Commit to yourself. For the next 30 days, turn everybody's name into a picture. Next thing I'd say is commit to yourself to work on understanding this Mind Palace technique. But you're so right about business. Business people have to give presentations. They want to become more dynamic and not rely on notes. Remember what your contacts say. So remember their names. And it all works with this simple system.
Any books that you'd recommend on this topic?
I would recommend an online memory course.
Okay, which is something you do yourself.
Yes.
You have an online memory course.
I do.
Okay, tell us a little bit about it. We're going to put the link below. But I got 2 more questions for you after that, which has to do with if certain countries apply this as an educational method, because I read somewhere where the countries that had the world memory champion were either from Asia, India, some of those places. So before we go to the course, is this curriculum in some places that you're aware of, or no, to teach this concept to kids?
Not formally, and it is my biggest sadness, I guess I could say, of my 28 years of doing this. My 28 years of doing this, I can go to a school and I can go into, I've spoken in.
This is like crazy, because what if teachers learn this concept? Forget about, like, imagine if I'm running a private school, my teachers are required to learn this concept, and they spent a week with you to learn how to take the curriculum we're teaching and then using this method of teaching so it sticks with the kids, how much more of an impact can be made, because this ability is going to help people in their careers.
Right.
So you're not aware that any school is teaching this concept, like part of curriculum?
Not to my knowledge, and I have tried, and it's my biggest frustration. And here's the objection that schools will often give me, and it's because they don't understand the process. They will say, I don't want my teachers or my students just regurgitating information. I want them to understand it, and that's a valid objection. But it's an objection because you don't fully understand the role of memory training. In other words, the schools are saying we don't want our kids memorizing it. We want them knowing it, understanding it. Fair enough. I agree. But what I'll say to you is this: memory training doesn't take you from being a novice to being an expert. But what it does do is take you from being a novice to right here, just almost to an expert, and it accelerates the learning process. It speeds up how much time. You still got to put it all together in your brain. You still got to understand it. So that's the biggest obstacle I have. But I've given this speech in 55 countries. And every time I go to some of those, and some of them are underprivileged countries and third world countries, and I always think to myself, man, if I could just get this in the school system here, this would make such a big difference. It's a hurdle for me.
Well, why do countries in India and Asia do so well at it, though? Is there a reason for it? Have you investigated that? Have you done some due diligence? Or is there a reason for it?
My YouTube following is, I would say, 30% in India, and I don't know why. But is it because it's in the culture?
Have you ever advertised your YouTube channel or no?
No.
So this is all organic, that 30% is from India?
Oh, yes. I'm not targeting it. It's grown that way.
Unbelievable.
But it shows a hunger, I guess you could say, for education. I heard somebody recently say the heavyweight boxer that he just got defeated. I heard somebody say, it's hard to get motivated when you're sleeping on silk sheets, and maybe, when you're in a country that's up and coming and you're not sleeping on silk sheets, maybe you're a little more motivated to learn and educate. I don't know. I'm just taking some stabs here, but I don't know. But there is a natural affinity, you're right, for learning and memory in some of those countries.
Who is the world champion right now? Memory. And where is it from? I know the one I looked at a couple of years ago was India. I think 18 may have been India.
I'm thinking, I've been out of the sport for 6 years. I'm thinking China or European currently. Yeah, World Memory Champion.
Can you look up to see? I'd be so curious to know on what the last three are, and if there's a trend. Like, I'm actually curious to know if there's a trend with it and by the way, there's never been a U.S. memory world champion, right? I read that somewhere, or was there one?
Recent. It's very recent, but it has happened.
So it has happened.
Yes.
And that's U.S. Is that world champion?
Both. He won the U.S. championships and the world championship.
World Memory Champion. Is that just what I type in, World Memory Champion?
Right.
And so let's see, World Memory Championship. Tony Buzan.
Yeah, he was the organizer.
Okay.
Johannes Malo, is he the current world champion?
Oh, okay. There's a 3-time back-to-back-to-back U.S. champion.
Yes.
That's impressive. 3 years in a row. Interesting. Got it.
He didn't win the USA Memory Championship 3 years in a row.
He won the undisputed world champion 3 years in a row. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Yeah, I mean, this is sometimes you look at the curriculum in school being taught and you're like, okay, how much of that's going to be used? If this is being taught, 100% I'm going to use this for the rest of my life.
Right.
I mean, if this is being taught at an early age, even first grade, so we don't have to wait late to be teaching this. We can teach this in first, second grade. I'm going to use this for the rest of my life. It's almost an unfair advantage if somebody teaches this to their kids.
It is.
It really is. In a playful way. It's an unfair advantage. Scholarships would be given for people because they know how to use this method. You'd be doing better on tests. You'd be doing If parents are watching this, if you want to save money for not sending your kids to college, if your kids learn how to do this, for sending kids to college without you paying for it, if your kids learn how to apply this concept, you can get some free scholarship if they learn this concept, because this is going to help with your grades.
Absolutely. It helps kids reduce their stress. Imagine you got a kid out there and he is just terrified to memorize his chemistry information or whatever. Then you show him this. not only does he know the information, he's no longer stressed or terrified about
right.
school.
That's right.
And that's a confidence builder.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so this is great. I appreciate you sharing all this insight with us. By the way, you do have a YouTube channel as well, right?
I do, yes.
How do we find your YouTube channel? We're going to put the link below, but tell us about your YouTube channel.
Yeah, so I have a YouTube channel with tons of videos. If you went to YouTube right now and you typed in the word Mind Palace or Memory Palace, I'd pop right up there near the top. But type in Ron White Memory, you'll find it. It's a great channel with free videos. The online memory course you asked me to let them know about is called Black Belt Memory.
I like that. blackbeltmemory.com.
That's right. And this is the way I structured it. I was sitting around a few years ago, and a buddy of mine, he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. And he said,
is this the buddy of yours that gave you the black eye, or that's a different buddy? That one makes sense.
He said, this was a really good friend, though. Tuesday happened to be my birthday. The same day.
Get out of here.
Yeah. So he gives this to me, and 30 minutes later, I got an ice pack on my eye, and he walks by, and he goes, happy birthday. But
that's cool.
The black belt memory, you start off as a white belt in memory, and then you go through some lessons, you take a test, and you earn your yellow belt. And then at the end, you earn your black belt in memory.
Interesting. And how long does that take to go through your course?
I've had people go through it in 3 days, and the average person 3 or 4 weeks.
Very cool. So we're going to put the link below for folks to go to it. Outside of that, man, it's been a pleasure sitting down with you. I learned a lot today. I was a student. I learned so much from you today. This was a pleasure having you on the show.
Well, the pleasure was all mine. I've known about you for a while now, and I've been wanting to meet you and wanting to actually do this. And so when I got the call the other day to say, do you want to do it? My first thought was my black eye, and my second thought was, you've been wanting to meet this guy for months now. Black eye or not, don't pass this up.
I appreciate that, man. It's good to have you on. Truly, I really enjoyed it, man. Truly enjoyed it.
Thank you.